evening, Mr. Rob Newman!
All right. Oh, that is fantastic. Look at y'all. 1,250 people here. Before I start, welcome to Simon Jones' benefit campaign gig. Before I start, we've just heard we've raised about £10,000 already, so give yourselves a big round of applause for another thing. And we're only just beginning. I've come here tonight. Oh, there is smoking for me. I'll blow it your way. I've come here tonight to talk about a traditional countryside pursuit that is under threat. And because of the threat to this traditional pursuit, I thought the Countryside Alliance March was a wonderful thing. Because when all them farmers, landowners and gamekeepers went down to London, I had the best night's poaching of my entire fucking life. So that's why I didn't make it down to the Countryside Alliance March. I did, however, make it down to the, oh, hush now. Oh, it's a little refugee settlement convoy there. Just come in now. Come in, my people. You missed the beginning. What we all did, we all took up our clothes and took our clothes off, stood up and said, we love Jesus. So if you can do that now, you'll be part of the group. So that's why I didn't make it down to the Countryside Alliance March, alas. I did, however, make it down to the June the 18th Reclaim the Streets Carnival Against Capitalism in the City of London, which was fantastic, because there you are, right in the heart of the city. And suddenly, you've got all these drug-fueled anarchists bent on social destruction looking out their office windows at a carnival, at streets made for joy and people, not corporations, and it was beautiful and surreal. Because Reclaim the Streets has suggested that as many of us as possible should come along to the carnival that day wearing suits, shirts and ties, so as to cause confusion. Meanwhile, however, loads of city firms had told their employees to show up to work that day wearing jeans and a t-shirt so they could get in unmolested. So there's some surreal scenes. I'm outside like the Life building, the London International Futures Exchange. Someone's just kicked in the glass panel of the door, and I look around and there's this fellow in like a perfect pinstripe suit who's just finished spraying the words "fuck corporate scum" on the door. When it opens, the head pops out and goes, "Jenkins, my office now." Actually, I was also in, actually before we go any further, I should tell you about a brilliant action I just heard about recently. It was Reclaim the Streets in New York. It was at Christmas time, and about half a dozen of them went into FAO Schwartz, which is like the main toy store in Broadway, and they're all disguised as Santa Claus. And they went onto different floors, and they went up to kids and said, "What do you want for Christmas?" And they went, "Oh, Nintendo." And I went, "Okay, there you go." And I said, "What do you want for Christmas?" "Okay." And they did this for about an hour, and then the kids get to the door, and the security say, "Where are you going with that?" They say, "Santa Claus gave it to me." And they say, "Oh, you haven't paid, son." And the parents saying, "I think this is very bad. We come here," and every child got to go home with their toys for free. So I was also in Seattle. I don't want to give the appearance of being a troublemaker, but that was the brilliant thing about that is that it was the first time I've been at like a bit of history and that. So I just read Eric Hobsbawm's History of the 20th Century, and he's so fucking cool, because he's just been everywhere. You read it, he just pops up everywhere. He says, "As Fidel Castro announced to a packed square in Havana that the revolution had been successful, I myself remember the atmosphere was electric." And you think, how cool. You were there. He pops up everywhere, man. LA riots. He's like, "Such was our control over the streets, I myself carried a Nikon digital stereo 3 blocks back to my hotel, pausing only to pop a cap in the arse of a pig motherfucker." But the news cannot get its head around interconnectedness like Seattle. They can never, the idea that different people from all over the world have seen all their different social and ecological problems rooted in the same system of corporate globalization, which is ironic, because the BBC News' slogan they've been advertising with recently, you may have seen, is "BBC News, we give you the big picture." No, 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 no. What they give us is the smallest picture possible. Think of that shot you see more than any other single shot on the news. It's on about every night. Is that one of some minister or other getting out of the Jag or Rover and walking like a dozen yards to the front door of number 10, or from number 10 dozen yards to the jag. And they always set it up with something that makes it seem like this is going to be a really significant shot. They always go, there were signs of tension in the government today as ministers arrive for what is expected to be a fraught cabinet meeting. So you watch the guy and he's like, and you're thinking, where's the tension? Where's the fraught? If you're going to set it up like that, you want the pictures to go over the words. The government was today accused of having forgotten its pre-election promises to the unemployed. Oh, fuck. We forgot the unemployed! And because they don't give you the big picture, context, what they do give you is worse than useless. Like whenever Jeremy Paxman on Newsnight is describing a third world country in debt, he's very fond of using this phrase, attempts at a Western-style economy have failed. Now, if I don't tell you why, that just implies, you know, these lazy Mexicans couldn't get it together. You know, imagine there's the Bank of England representative talking to his Mexican counterpart and saying, no, it's very important you have a tight fiscal supply to control the rate of inflation. Never mind that. Look at all the lovely ladies, eh? Well, I really must insist that you concentrate. You see, if we control the fiscal policy through the structural... Hey, what's the matter? Don't you like the fucky, huh? It becomes institutionally racist if you don't tell people about the WTO lowering El Salvador's minimum wage from 60 cents an hour to 36 cents an hour. But the whole debt thing, of course, is racist. White debt written off, black debt remains. None of the European countries that received Marshall Plan aid from America in 1945 ever paid it back. Because that wasn't the point. The point was export market for America. That's why the 1950s was like America, Atlantic, Britain, fridges, there you go, Hoovers, there you go, Bill Haley, there you go, Elvis Presley, there you go, oh shit. Oh man, you know what I mean. So I should explain where I've been for the last few years, because I know that some of you thought I was dead. I've been writing this book, but whenever you tell people you've been writing a novel, they always ask the same question. They always go, oh, is it autobiographical? Is it an autobiographical novel? Sore point. Because it's not. And I'd love to be able to write autobiographically, but I can't, because when I look back over my life, all my memories are fantastically cliched and the stuff of bad fiction. Like my first ever memory is of seeing a dog running out of a butcher's shop with a long string of sausages in its mouth, followed shortly after by the butcher, who was, if memory serves, a jolly red-faced man with a curly whirly moustache going... Scene becomes a bit hazy off that, but I do remember a steamroller, some quick-drying cement, two men carrying a plate glass window across the street. And way up at this gantry, there was a chap with a plank, turned round, bumped into this other fellow, had hold of a winch with his chain and a huge weight dangling. I remember exactly how much it was, because it said in it, 1 ton. So the novel was kind of called The Bridge and Tunnel People, and it's set in San Luis Potosi in Mexico, and the hero is called Sandino. And what's happened is a US corporation, they've put a toxic waste dump there, and it's leaching into the groundwater, destroying the peasant farmers' crops. And they're all up in arms, and they all meet in the main square. And Sandino does this speech to them. He says, Nosotros nacimos de la noche, y en el vivimos, moriremos en ella. Pero la luz será mañana para los más, nuestra lucha por la vida. Y el mal golpeano ofrece muerte y tortura. Nuestra lucha es por la justicia. Y el mal golpeano se llena de criminales y asesinos, nuestra lucha es por la paz. Y el mal golpeano anuncia guerra y destrucción. Aquí estamos, somos la dignidad rebelde, el corazón olvidado de la patria. And it's a brilliant speech. Uplifting, inspiring, but none of the peasants speak Spanish. So I live up in London. As you know, we're all got quite exercised about this whole mayor thing, Ken and Dobbo. The thing about Dobbo, I don't want to cause offence, but I can't think of a polite way to say this. But Dobbo, right, he is sort of simple though, isn't he? Do you know what I mean? He's slightly, like, he reminds me of this sort of fat kid you meet when you're a kid on a camping holiday in Northampton going, can I lick your sister? I sleep in the same bed as my mother. Can we be friends? Can you see that? Well, I've got some good neighbours where I live. My landlord and landlady live upstairs with me, the Lavenders. They're in about their 60s or 70s, I'd say. And there's Hubert and Muriel Lavender. He wears like one of them battered old straw hats and a linen jacket. And she wears one of those wicker hats with flowers around it. And the lovely, dear, sweet good, kind people, but whenever they get tired, which is usually after about 11 o'clock in the morning, they both start to sound really sinister. Like, I was down the park with the Lavenders the other day, and my cousin Helen was there with her kids, who were just like toddlers, and the Lavenders were kind of complimenting Helen on her kids, and cousin Helen was saying, oh, thanks, yes, they are lovely kids, but, you know, that age, you've got to keep your eye on them all the time, so many things they can bump into. And Hubert Lavender went, yes, it would be a shame if one of your children were to have some kind of accident. And like, I go in the house for coffee sometimes, and Mr. Lavender comes up to me and says, would you like a hot drink? Yes, please, Mr. Lavender, I'll just have a cup of coffee, please. Yes, a nice hot cup of coffee. What could be more harmless than that? And I had to go and get the Lavenders out of the police station. They, of all people, have managed to get themselves arrested one time, because they're very sweet. They go for like these arm-in-arm evening constitutionals around Kentish Town. And they got to this road called Junction Road, and it was sealed off with that police line, do not cross tape. And they asked the policeman what had gone on, and he said, firearms incident. And Hubert Lavender was like, and yet somehow the gunman, or gunwoman Muriel, or perhaps both, appear to have got away. Now, how, I wonder, did they do that? And Muriel was like, well, I suppose most firearms could be hidden in a bag. Why? No bigger than this one. I do hope there isn't going to be another shooting officer in, say, 10 minutes' time over there, which is where we're going now. And they get themselves into trouble because they're very into all that English heritage. And they go around with like notebooks and pencils, making little notes and everything they see. And they went on the official guided tour of the Millennium Dome. And like, do you mean to tell us, Chief Engineer, that this entire £750 million structure, on which the eyes of the whole world will be fixed, is all held in place by that one central supporting pillar? Dome is fucked up though, isn't it? I mean, the way I see it is if we're going to spend £750 million on the biggest and best party this country's ever seen, we give the money to Mr. Sean Ryder. Then we got ourselves a party. We're like, all right, man, I put some of the cash to one side for drink and drugs, and with the remaining £50, I bought some scatter cushions. Bring your own paper cups. See you there, Sean. And they want to make the Millennium Dome a celebration of 2,000 years of Christianity. 2,000 years of Christianity. And the same people who want that also want it to be for families. Now, there's a difficult balancing act. You've got to have burning witches at the stake, cutting out heretics' tongues, the Pope siding with the Nazis in the Second World War, genocide in South America, all offset by having a stall selling some lovely homemade jam. I'm sorry if any of you are Christians, not because I've offended you, just because it's a stupid fucking belief. But I've never understood it. It's meant to be. I've never understood it. It's meant to be God becomes human through Jesus Christ, but he ain't human because you can't relate to him. The bread is me body, the wine is me blood. That's too lordly. We want human detail, and besides, like the Last Supper, definitely a right old blowout. Look at the facts. Judas recently flushed, come into a few sovs so he can push them out for the party. Disciples don't need to worry about the alcohol running out because Jesus can do a special party trick. I reckon all that long the disciples are passing Jesus these bottles of water going, here, I feel how cold that is. Hey. Now the narrative has some internal logic, because all in their cups, that's why Peter says that famous line about, I love you, Lord. And he said, no, Peter, but you'll deny me 3 No, I fucking love you. And Jesus is drinking away like there's no tomorrow because there's omniscient and there ain't. So the next day, Jesus Christ has a wowzer of a hangover. Now, how much more can we all relate to the crucifixion story if you knew that? He had a hangover on top of everything else. Imagine that, man. The sun is beating down, the crowds are shouting, and he's carrying this heavy wooden cross thinking, I do not need this today. Oh, we're all nicely stoked up. We've got a fantastic bill for you tonight. It's so good. It's very good and all brilliant. The next act, as well as being just brilliant and fantastically just witty and just about the best stand-up in the world. She told me to inform you that she has been to Hove before. When she was 13, she was in a nursing home here because she had scabies. It could only be one person. Please welcome the most brilliant, the wonderful Joe Brand. All right. We're just coming to the interval now. And just before the interval, we're going to have an interval now about 15, 20 minutes. We've got some literature on the Simon Jones Memorial Campaign, but also on the Stop the Terrorism Bill. And if Simon was still with us, he would be campaigning full square on that. If you don't know about it, just very briefly, Clause 1 redefines terrorism as threat of serious destruction against property. So, and then after that, it gallops on merrily to ban organisations, and they say in the consultation paper the potential scope for this is very broad. They make an offence to speak at a meeting at which a member of a banned organisation is at. So if the 10mar00 militia is like a terrorist group, I'll just pick it whatever. 5 years in jail for incitement to commit a terrorist act. That's me and Mark Thomas's career out the fucking window. But, of course, and it would have affected the suffragettes and Greenpeace and everything, but it's not all destruction of property. Only destruction of property that isn't for profit is terrorist. So anti-GM campaigners decontaminating a field trial test site, that's terrorism because it's not for profit. Shell Oil in Orgoni, Station Sawmills devastating Pressman and Woods, or Balfour beating Lishu Dam, that destruction of property, that serious violence against property, isn't terrorism because it's done for profit. So my advice to you is, if you're going to commit an act of terrorism, get sponsorship. See you back here in 20 minutes. And once more for Joe Brand. What's relaxing you is your job. What's your job? Barry White's tour manager. What's your job? What do you do? He's a prostitute. That's why I'm relaxed. Oh, well, my anal sphincter's very relaxed. The rest of me is quite tense. No, before we go down that comedy cul-de-sac, come this way. What wedding? Okay, and now I was just saying, just round the corner from where I live in Kentish Town in North London, there's a Greek Cypriot car mechanic called Dakis, and I pop in to have a chat with him most days when I should be writing, and have a cup of tea, and he's quite paternal with me because I'm half Greek Cypriot as well, and we have these long chats at the end of which I always leave with the exact same thought in my head, which is, I have absolutely no idea what that conversation was about. Because Dakis would be like, you see, Robert, when you have a wife and children, that is your family. And your house is where you live, okay? Of course, where you live, your house, but also your home. Now, I repair the cars, right? Some people want a car on a Tuesday, some people want on a Thursday, a lot of women go by, and I go in the pub, a lot of lesbians, you know. But I fix a car, could be start a motor, but houses, streets, trees. I tell you, man, Dakis is my favourite Greek philosopher. Because it seems to me that none of us really knows what's going on in our lives most of the time. None of our personal philosophies make complete sense. All have their gaps, contradictions, and yet, soon as any of us get into any kind of heated discussion or debate, we argue our corner so viciously as though if only everyone would agree with me, there would be no problems in the world whatsoever. And I came away from one of these evenings recently, I thought, I've just been shouting at these people for 3 hours, and they're my friends. And, you know, what does it matter anyway? You know, maybe they're right. Maybe it was called Boss Cat in America and Top Cat over here. What are we really arguing about? Then it occurred to me, right, it's not the ideas, it's our very identities what's at stake. Because each of us, we like to think of ourselves as someone who knows stuff about stuff. So if we're wrong about this, we could be wrong about everything, and our whole fragile ego will unravel. Because I don't know if any of us have got a strong sense of our own identity anymore. Well, I say that, but I tell you, I read interviews with some people, and they seem to have got their entire life down pat. They're like, well, because of this, I became that. I due to being like this, I went to that, which coupled with this led to that, so here I am, and I thought it would be there. Fuck me, whose life's that? My life is like, oh, people moving around. Doors closing, opening, traffic lights, so I know her. Oh no, I've got her confused with someone else. These are my shoes. Are there any other men in the audience apart from me who live on their own? This is... No. No. We're all in couples. We should be going home to have sexual intercourse while you masturbate bitterly in a Kentish town flat. One of the best things about being a man living on your own is one of those strange sort of compensations. Is whenever like the workmen come around, like builders, plumbers, electricians, I just feel so astonishingly gay. It's a wonderful feeling. Because these are like real men who can repair the physical universe with thumbs like hexagonal spanners. These are manly men doing manly labour in the manly way of men down the ages of man. And all I can do is stand there and go, would you like a cup of tea? I expect a big strong man like you works up quite a thirst. Do you mind if I watch? Mm-hmm. It's a lovely flamboyant feeling. I don't think I'm going to live on my own for much longer though. I'm in my male deluded fantasy way, because I've noticed, like when I was in my 20s, I felt when we were in our 20s, you had all the power in personal relations. Like in our 20s, women are very dismissive of us as you're boring, you're stupid, and your best friend's Sydney. What sort of name's that for a best friend? You're boring. I'm 35 now. All the women I knew 10 years ago, same age, body clocks ticking very, very loudly, and the power is beginning to shift my way. I spent my 30s in a rocking chair on the veranda just going, so, decided to drop by, pay us a call. Well, there's going to be a few changes around here. Thought I might visit my friend Sydney. Seller's market for seamen. I don't know. Confusing times, and like I go around, oh, hello. Oh, fucking hell, depressing. I was thinking, God, there's a fat Mexican taxi driver. It's me. It is me. Oh man. So anyway, you go around the country, like trying to tell people about transnational corporations and the rise of global power, and the problem is people say, but it's very easy to criticize. Very easy to criticize. What do we do about it? Yes, we can all knock the system. What do we do about it? Well, I think we should all join the Conservative Party. Now, you're looking at me like, Master, you have given us many strange commandments. But this must surely be the strangest, most difficult for us to comprehend. Unless, Master, you have a cunning plan, perhaps. Indeed I do, my wise children of the South Coast. It runs thus, right? It occurs to me, right, there's only about 2,000 members of the Conservative Party that will still be alive at the end of winter. Right, so all we'll have to do, right, is for all of us in this room to join, we'd be in a majority, could change their constitution to anything we chose. Make it pro-abolition of all corporations, pro-outlawing all toxins in agriculture, but still hopelessly divided over Europe just for a laugh. Because I think we've had a very high standard of debate about the euro in this country. They're going to take the Queen's off the money. You've got to have the Queen's on the money. Now they're talking about taking the Queen's off the steps. You have got to have the Queen's on something. You have got to have the Queen's head on something. Quite agree. Might I suggest a large block of wood next to a basket. Because it's embarrassing having a fucking Queen. And you know what it's like, down in the southeast, we occasionally bump into some people who actually argue in favour of a monarchy. They say to me stuff like Flipper Boy. They say to you stuff like, in their strange seal language, they say to you stuff like, as a matter of fact, the Queen isn't a parasite. As a matter of fact, no, she's not a parasite. As a matter of fact, most of her money comes from her land. Whose land? Our land, taken from us by theft and murder and the clever use of hedges. And the clever use of hedges. I thought that fantastic line had been lost for a moment there, because it's still there. Which brings us back to the question, how do we change it? What do we do about it? Or rather, what stops change? Now, I suffer very badly from shame attacks. I don't know if you know what I mean by shame attacks. They wait till you're really relaxed and happy on your own, just reading a book, listening to music, and for no reason at all, a memory of something really shameful you once did floats across your mind, like, oh no, something's going to happen, oh. And yet I was thinking, I bet truly evil people with loads of wrongdoing to the name never get shame attacks. I bet Pol Pot never used to come out of his house of a morning and go, "That's funny, there's a big pile of skulls outside my front door." Oh, I didn't. And that got me thinking like that, because the 20th century has been so full of monsters and tyrants like Stalin, Pol Pot, Kissinger, and because victory over the Nazis in the Second World War was such a close call, we've come to see history as a series of narrow escapes, which makes us timid in our demands for social justice. But you can see history completely the other way around, as a series of tragically missed opportunities. Like in 1649, the diggers went to St. George's Hill, started digging up the common land, and their vision became a dominant philosophy in Britain. But imagine the diggers and levellers had gone to St. George's Hill in 1640. It's the start of the English Revolution. New model army is its top strength. Their vision becomes the dominant philosophy in Britain, just as the Puritans are leaving for Plymouth Rock. And if a bunch of diggers and levellers had landed in America, the whole history of that continent and the world would be different. You can see a full transcript of this joke in the Oxford Dictionary under the word tenuous. But my point is, right, everything can be different, but we don't see this because of the time. Like, for example, like the last gig I did, I was wearing blue trousers, green shirt, and one of the comics come up to us in the dressing room before the gig and went, "Blue and green should never be seen except upon an Irish queen." And I thought, imagine trying to say that to Chairman Mao. He'd be like, his whole family and his village. We're scared to dream, but everything can be different. There's nothing natural, organic about this system. But you try telling that to New Labour people, and they're so stuck in their Gladstonian ideas. They say, "Oh, you want to go back to the bad old days of the 70s. You forget about old Labour. You forget about the bad old days of the 70s." Now, I was there then. I remember the 70s, and I won't gloss it over to you either. What I remember most of all were alarming cutbacks. I was at primary school, for example. We're about to go away on the school French trip. Headmaster calls me into his office, says, "You're not going to France just for a holiday. While you're there, you'll be acting as an ambassador for Britain." Well, I came in from school. I said, "Mother, you know the French trip? Well, it turns out I'm to be going in something of an official capacity." The last 20 years have seen such a massive transfer of power and wealth from democracies to corporate power that any politician of integrity cannot deceive themselves. That's why my hero is the President of Norway. Because the end of last year, absolutely true, the President of Norway had to take a week off work because he was depressed. Isn't that brilliant, man? President taking a week off work because he's depressed. You can never imagine Blair just going, "Well, you know, what's the point? I just feel tired all the time, you know." But President of Norway, fantastic, right? Because it's and his last few speeches before the breakdown were brilliant. He was saying the economy is very complicated. We have inflation, deflation, wages, prices. These are my shoes. You can criticise individual politicians, but that misses the point. It's the structures of power. Like, the problem with satire is that at the back of an audience mind you think, yeah, well, you can have a pop at these politicians, but at the end of the day they're just decent people doing the best they can in a difficult situation. And that's precisely the point. When people get into power, they become part of a system based on lies, and crucially, that system becomes part of them. Don't matter who the individual is. Could be anyone. Could be Prime Minister Newman. When will you let the Foreign Secretary answer these very serious allegations? Well, as you know, I've recently appointed a new Foreign Secretary, and you can ask him yourself right now if you want. Will I thank Prime Minister Newman for this unexpected show of candour, but feel he may live to regret it? Foreign Secretary, did Prime Minister Newman, or did he not, tell you to take all the money earmarked for road building in Britain over the next 10 years and give it to the Zapatista rebels in Chiapas? Foreign Secretary. Well, when you are a Foreign Secretary, right, that is your job, okay? And your red button, now listen, right, it's fucking important. So it's important that we look at the structures of power and the real stuff like that. So I've just written that bit. So, and which brings us nicely on to the film that has been made. It's the Simon Jones Memorial Campaign film. So a round of applause and then lights down, and we'll be back with that. Okay.